Hey everyone, with Season 11 just now starting, the challengers here at Skillcapped have come together to discuss what they think will be the absolute best junglers to main for the upcoming season. We've ranked them in order for you based on a few factors. First, we assume that you will be picking the champion almost every time that it's not banned, so it needs to have a good matchup spread and versatility so that you won't lose in champ select. Secondly, it needs to pay off. There has to be a high mechanical skill ceiling that will reward you for putting hours and hours into the champion, and will separate you from the people who only pick it every so often. Lastly, it has to have been a consistently good pick for a while, and not just a flavor of the month that will get gutted by Riot next patch and ruin all of your effort. With that being said, let's jump right into number 5 on our list. Starting off, we've got a personal favorite of mine, Ivern. Some of you may be thinking that it doesn't really make sense given our criteria of having a high skill ceiling, but let me explain. Ivern actually has a fair number of mechanics that really make the good Ivern players heads and shoulders above the rest. You can first time Ivern and do an okay job, but there are so many things that make him absolutely broken. Using bushes to hide your Q, daisy spawn, or control wards adds an extra layer of complexity to your ganks and objective setup. Micromanaging Daisy and controlling her like a second champion instead of just an AI that will run up an auto is the real difficulty here. Think about if an ADC just didn't kite or move between autos. That's essentially what Daisy does with her AI. If you manually control her, well, you start guaranteeing knockups that you wouldn't have landed otherwise. Doing this while simultaneously playing your own character is really hard, but the payoff is huge. On top of this, Ivern has a very unique playstyle that makes him extremely unpredictable to most other junglers. If they don't understand how your champion works, then they won't be able to predict your pathing at all. You also rush boots, meaning that you can just get to plays on the map quicker than other people and control the entire game from start to finish. Additionally, you fit into most team compositions. You can shield frontline while they're diving in, or shield backline and peel back. There are just very few instances where Ivern just sucks in any particular game. He's been a great pick for 3 seasons now, and I personally used him in my Season 7 2-hit Challenger, and one-tricks have always been able to hit high ranks for the past few years without exception. Needless to say, the item changes have only made him better than before, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. That's a lot of positives, but why does he only land at number 5 then? Well, where he does struggle is some matchups. You have 2 in particular that you want to worry about, Rengar and Graves. Rengar basically nullifies your ability to place brushes, since he will use them against you and jump all over the place in teamfights. In the early stages of the game where Ivern is the weakest, he runs all over you and can snowball the game. If you invade him and he's there, well, you're probably a dead tree. Rengar is basically a must ban, unless you want to duo with Rengar players and abuse for free LP. Graves is a bad matchup, but slightly more manageable. The biggest issue is that he scales extremely hard and nullifies your teamfight threat since his auto attacks push Daisy backwards. You basically don't have an ultimate when Graves is in the game. You've also got a few champions like Olaf that are pretty terrifying in their own right, but you can definitely manage, especially if you have a ton of experience, but he does have a hard time in a few cases. Regardless, you can always make do, and Ivern will reward you heavily if you do put in the hours. Coming in at number 4, we've got Ekko, a champion that has long since terrorized solo queue and has some of the highest potential for 1v9 out of any champ on this list. He's extremely safe given his ulti and excels at skirmishing, teamfights, dives, you name it. What makes him so good now is that you have a lot of options for builds. Nashor's Tooth helps deal with tanks and Lichbane for squishies. If you're picking him before you see the enemy team, it's pretty important that your champion will work no matter what the enemy locks in, and that's one of his best qualities. One of the worst feelings is not being able to go in and having to wait for your team to do stuff before you can. Ekko can just dive in without a care in the world and start fights on his own, a really valuable ability in solo queue where you can't really rely on teammates. He's very much the definition of a solo carry. You got some really great skill expression with Rocket Belt, Ultimate, and W placement, so on top of being really strong and having a high skill ceiling, he also is just super fun, so you won't get bored even after hundreds of games. In fact, the reason why he's not higher up on this list is because he's too good. On top of being a very reliable mid laner, his pick rate and ban rate are pretty high, so the chance you might get your champion taken away from you is a bit too high for comfort. If Ekko goes back to being a more niche pick without losing too much power, we would probably move him up on this list. Moving right on to number 3, we've got Elise. I always tout her as being one of the best champions to learn the fundamentals of the game. And if you want to one trick and eventually pick up other champions down the line, Elise's playstyle is very good for that. She's not super unique, so your skill set will translate to other champions, but the most valuable thing about her is that she teaches you how to impact the map. A lot of other champions can get away with just farming and waiting for teamfights. Elise can't. You need to snowball games and snowball them hard. She's a champ that has very little room for error, but in the hands of an expert will destroy games. You have probably the best ganks and dives in the entire game, paired with insane skirmishing ability. Because of this, even her bad matchups aren't even bad. You can really ruin an Olaf's day by invading him early or snowballing lanes while he's farming. She stands up to pretty much everyone in the jungle, and that's something not a lot of champions can do. Her difficulty is what makes her not easy to recommend unless you're talking about putting tons of hours into her like we are right now. Having a champion with an insane level of complexity and skill expression on top of teaching you the game correctly, you really can't go wrong. Tons of players from pros, challenger junglers, and all of our jungle experts at Skillcapped have her at the top of their most played for multiple seasons. There's never been a time where Elise was just bad, especially in lower elos. Being able to capitalize on an inting laner is super valuable, and there's literally no one better than Elise. The one thing that holds her back is that she lacks backline access in teamfights. If you have to kill a fed Caitlyn, it's going to be really hard without a flank or relying on mispositioning. If not for this, she'd easily be our number 1 pick. At number 2, we have the king of versatility himself, Kane. If you ever wanted a jungler that can farm really quickly, gank, counter jungle, dive, tank, assassinate, skirmish, walk through walls, solo objectives, well, the list just doesn't ever end. With 2 forms that let you adapt to matchups in games, you really aren't ever going to be in a position where you just can't do anything. Even bad matchups are avoidable since you can walk through walls and have infinite dashes. You also have one of the fastest jungle clears, so if you can't find ganks, well, you'll still be ahead. You scale incredibly hard, teamfight really well, and you're just good at every stage of the game. It used to be that Kane wasn't in the best spot early, but new items and smites have really given him a push to make him be absolutely insane. Even after Q cooldown nerfs, Kane still runs over people in solo queue. He's been viable since his release, and as a fan favorite, we don't really think that Riot will ever totally gut him. With so many different viable build paths, playstyles, and answers to all sorts of things, Kane is just a Swiss Army knife of jungle. Because of the amount of tools that he has, your skill ceiling is really high. Learning when to build certain items, what forms to go based on team comps, situational awareness, and adaptation all make him extremely fun and rewarding to play. All of the Kane 1 tricks can probably attest to this in the comments below. Before we continue, we just want to make sure you guys all know where this guide came from. Skillcapped. It's the best place to be if you actually want to improve at League of Legends. We have the best and the most League of Legends guides on the internet that really do work. The best part is you don't have to take our word for it. If you don't climb 5 divisions while actively using skill caps, you can claim a full refund. So give it a shot and get the rank you've always wanted for Season 11. Check us out after this. The number 1 pick on our list will probably not come as any surprise. It's the man who truly has no counters, one of the most broken abilities in the game, and some of the most versatile builds, and he's been absolutely broken for years on end. Graves is just insane. You got ranged red buff, tons of damage, tankiness, sustain, multiple playstyles, and on top of this, you literally don't lose any matchups if you play correctly. Because of this fact alone, you can ask your teammates to first pick him every game without ever being worried. You can fight early, you can scale, you can farm, you can counter jungle without fear, 2v1, 1v9, dive, any positive quality you can think about in a jungler, you can just bet that Graves has it. His playstyle is very unique, considering that his auto attacks are totally different from every other champion in the game. Learning how to animation cancel his different abilities, get your bullets to land where you want them to, and really optimize your damage just pushes Graves to the next level. Almost every challenger jungler knows how to play and uses Graves regularly. It wouldn't be odd to say that he's almost a near requirement to learn for pros just because of how strong he actually is. In the hands of an average Graves player, he might not look like anything special, but we've all seen Graves smurfs that can't die while doing a million damage. His lethality build lets you deal with troublesome backliners that get fed, while Gale Force and Shield Bow can be used for extra utility. Just like Kane, learning when to go certain items and playing a certain way lets you win otherwise unwinnable games. Even though his pick rate is high, his overall strength alone and ability to be blind picked just lands him at the number 1 spot. We really couldn't justify lowering him anymore because his other qualities are just so good that they outweigh any bad. And that's it for our top 5 list. The main commonality in all of these champions is that they just give you, as a player, a lot of options once mastered. At the end of the day, jungle is all about being able to capitalize on opportunity, and these 5 champions can just seize the chance to win when they see it. Just because a champion didn't land on this list doesn't mean that we don't think it's strong. As you play the game more and more, you'll want to broaden your champion pool, but this guide is specifically for those looking to play one champion and one champion only. If we wanted to rank champions in certain matchups or against certain teams, that'd be a whole different video entirely. Let us know who you'll be maining in the upcoming season, and good luck in your placements. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.